Welcome to Right Talk with Mike Lee, where we endeavor to engage in intelligent and enlightening talk to nourish the mind. With me this evening, I have two gentlemen, and I should really give kudos to Richard Franklin for this because I met both of these gentlemen through Richard Franklin. And I'd like to speak with them about their views and perspectives on racial reconciliation and also revelations that have come to their attention as a result of the election of President Trump. Now, my guest to my immediate right is Mr. Reverend Steve Miller. Steve is I'd be better advised to let Steve tell you about what he's doing himself. But he's working on you tell them, project. Steve.
I'm working on an oral history project. It's a storytelling project that chronicles the time when African Americans, people of color, Hispanics, have been racially discriminated against. And what we do is we listen to those stories so they can release them, so God can come in and heal that broken place. And also it puts distance between people who are ill-equipped to talk about race. So if you can't talk about it, if you hear a story of someone's experience with that, if you're a compassionate person, you're more apt to listen to that than facts and figures. So that's why we did the Storytelling Project.
Now, I met Steve at one of what I call Richard's Roundtables meetings on Wednesdays.
Uh-huh.
There wasn't, the last was Cancer Show.
It was a couple weeks ago.
But what interested me in what we were talking about at the table was Steve was talking about a project he worked on in Bastrop County.
Yes.
Is that where you kind of like cut your teeth on this racial reconciliation deal?
Yeah, that's.
And then you also talked about something you're working on in Carthage. What was that about?
Oh yeah, the project I'm working on in Carthage is with a group of pastors, primarily Republican pastors of faith down there, and we're working on a racial reconciliation project. And what we're trying to do is have the church lead the charge in racial reconciliation, because for the most part we've gotten away from the Bible. You know, we call it social justice. I call it biblical justice. And I think that God has given the church the authority to be a compassionate figure in this conversation, and I just don't see us having that. So in my effort to raise up the church and get pastors and men and women of faith to talk about this, we want them to lead it. So what I'm doing, I'm having trainings in Carthage. We're talking about, you know, definitely what the Bible says about justice, biblical justice, what the academics say about it, and what just regular people say about it. So we're opening up conversations that they never had with people of color, or what they never had in general. So we're just getting a chance to know and explore other ways and modes of thinking.
Isn't that kind of difficult to broach that subject with political correctness and all the other garbage going on?
No, actually it's been pretty easy, and actually it's been rather fun. You know, I lead in a unique way, and you know, right now I'd say my way of leading the struggle it's sort of new, but it's really not new, because Martin Luther King Jr. and the people that he worked with set the example for us. And when I broach the subject, you know, I always go in with love first, and I never go in just talking about the subject. I always get a chance to know. I develop a relationship. You know, I go by the old mantra that I heard when I was in the first grade, you know, and I live by that mantra, and it is no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And I let people know I care about them before I start asking them for anything. And when you let people know that you care, then they're open to more conversation. And that's the way I pursue it. I pursue it through love, because if you don't have love doing this work, you'll destroy yourself.
So in your view, let's say, Kennard, why do you think racial reconciliation is necessary? What do you think? What are your thoughts on the subject?
Well, different things. I think on the one hand, like Steve was saying, as a believer, it's important that it tells you, like, you know, love covers a multitude of sins, but love is patient, it's kind, and it, like I said before we started, it doesn't hold a grudge. And so, and even if you weren't a Christian, that idea in and of itself is very important. That, you know, if you were to grow as a person, if you were to grow as a county or a nation, it's important to, like you said, operate as much as you can from a standpoint of love. Doesn't mean we agree on everything,
Right.
but it does mean I love you and I care about you just because you're you. So I guess the point is that it's important because we want to grow mentally, physically, financially, and spiritually. And the spiritual is like the, like it says, when Jesus talked about being a cornerstone, that's the cornerstone to jump off from.
Yeah. He's absolutely right. The Bible also says this. It says that, and I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember the Bible verse verbatim or word for word, but it says you can solve all mysteries and have all knowledge. But if you don't have love, you don't have anything. You have nothing. So everything starts with that.
And if you only approach it from the standpoint of policy, like a literal policy or government policy or a social policy, which is important, but you know, on a level of things being the lowest and the highest, that's actually the lowest, or one of the lower than operating from the standpoint of what's in your heart, or and frankly even a biblical principle. So that it's important to do all the political stuff. It's important to have equity. It's important to remember redlining. It's important to remember how, you know, white people actually got land grants and got the land and all this stuff. But I'm not going to dwell on that because, you know what, it doesn't tell me I'm supposed to dwell on it. It tells me I'm supposed to forgive. It tells me I'm supposed to love. And even if I did know the Bible, is it better for you to walk around mad at somebody for the next 30 years? Or better to move on and say, you know what? I know you stole that money from me. I don't know we'll be your friend, but I forgive you. Yeah. You know, hypothetically speaking.
Well, I was real interested in what Steve was talking about at the Richard Roundtable meeting. I'm still interested in learning about the challenges that you have, because it seems to me in this atmosphere of political correctness, and it seems like, to me at least, Christianity is being marginalized. It took a new president to be able to say Merry Christmas, damn near.
Well, can I jump in and say one thing?
Sure.
When you do, and I don't know you, I've heard of you, when you're trying to do something for the reason it appears you're trying to do it, then that changes the other part. It changes like how people view things. It can change the paradigm. You do, what you're called to do, or what you need to do, and you can change that perception. You can change it being marginalized. Like I think I put something on Facebook recently, and it was like, well, you need to represent who you are and whose you are. Represent the Father in terms of Christians. You need to represent who you are and do what you can to glorify the Father and carry out collectively and individually what He's called you to do. So as a body, like in my church or anybody's church or whatever, as a Christian, what are we doing to be out there and show God's love or His wisdom at work in Carthage and down the street? I do it in lunchroom sometimes, whatever. So nobody might not ever see you, but what are you doing? So you won't be marginalized, or maybe the effects of that marginalization will be lessened and eliminated if people just stay focused on what He said versus what the world say.
That's a good point.
I understand what you're saying, but except I ran across an article. Was that today where it's hard to even mention Christianity or Christian ideas on a college. The most difficult college campuses were Harvard and Berkeley. Were the ones that are most really almost opposed to thought. Any thought that's different from what everybody is espousing, the loud mouths espousing.
Yeah, but back when my parents were trying to fight for civil rights in Maryland, or you were doing something, or your parents, then you did what you had to do. And sometimes, I've worked for a state agency, I worked for a university, and I saw how ignorant and asinine they were if you believe for Christians. Like, they would denigrate you. They never, and at the time I was probably more of a quiet Christian, but the point of it is that at some point you got to man up, put on your big boy pants, and you have to be ready for that, because the Bible doesn't tell you, and even if you don't follow the Bible, there's nothing in it that says stuff is going to be easy. There's nothing that says you won't be castigated. They're going to try to cut you down. Half of them will. But you know what? When you're rolling with, with the king, it's like, well, what are you worried about? And even my point is that this all happens. I don't care what you say. I don't care what he says. I don't care what she says. In the context of my faith, I care what he says and who I am and what he in him. And you can do whatever you want. People where I work.
So you focus on your relationship with God.
I focus on my relationship with God. But frankly, look, we live in America. Unless I'm sitting there, but I have a constitutional right to talk, to believe, and I have freedom of speech. So I'm not saying you walk around trying to piss everybody off, but I have a right to say, if somebody at my lunch table at work asks me about something about faith, I'm gonna tell them. And some people are like, why are you talking about? Because I got a right. What you talking about? Why am I talking about this? Are you crazy? Or a lady at work, I said, hey, I'm thinking about having a Bible study. This is when I worked in another building. Well, we can't have that up here. I looked at her like, what? Don't you know you got a right? Like, you gonna have a right? What? They got Toastmasters. We can't do this. If they got Toastmasters, they got a right to be here. We got a right to. So the whole point is, you understand the context of your legal right as an individual, a citizen of this nation. You understand your right as a child of God. And even if you're an immature Christian, like I said, we all probably were, you stand on your rights. What other than you exercise them.
Other than Pokey's instance on the Trailer Park Show, which I should be on live. One of the main reasons I wanted to do this show was I looked at Channel 10 one day, when surfing, and they had like a show on atheists. Yeah. And I thought to myself, oh my God, what about people who aren't?
Right. You know what? I always lead from a compassionate perspective.
There you go.
I had a conversation with a very smart person. I guess it's been about 2 weeks ago now. It seems like everything happened 2 weeks ago for me. And this particular person was struggling with whether or not they believed in God. or just couldn't feel the presence of God. It was just really questioning. And so in this conversation, what I learned was that the reason why he felt that way with God is because he had a relationship with his dad where he felt like he let him down a lot. And so that relationship with his earthly dad was factoring into this relationship with God. And when we discovered that, he was like, wow. So sometimes believing in God is, or not, or feeling the presence of God is whether or not you have a relationship with your dad, and God understands that. You know what I mean? So, the quintessential essence of Christianity is love. And I don't see how anybody can have a problem with that. But one of the things that I've realized is that the reason why people do have a problem is they don't have a problem with it per se, because the essence of it is love. What they have a problem with is that Christianity throughout eternity has been used for some very evil things. And when you have people that claim to be Christians on either side or wherever they're from, but they do things that are suspect, it turns off people, and it causes them to be fearful and suspect of them. So really, before we judge even them, we got to get in and we have to understand, hey, does this have anything to do with your dad? Or your mom? You know what I'm saying?
To that extent,
Yeah.
I think most of us have. That's why I turned away how people used to treat my mom. And to put it in a slightly different context is that people, like we used to do jihad, slavery started in the Muslim world. Not to say you're bad, but the point is religion is often used in ways that is not always positive.
Yeah.
And in the Christian faith, like I even told my own kid, or I used to think too, is like, look, just because they did that, and again, this is sticking with your point of loving, but being truthful, because sometimes love covers a multitude of sins. Yeah. Jesus went in there at one time and showed them love, and at one point he came in and turned all the money changers over. So love sometimes can be stronger.
Yeah, that's right.
But my point there is simply to say that we make a mistake even when, because we're not operating from a point of love or relationship with God by blaming God for somebody, what my dad did or what his dad did. And so that I agree, we turn them away because of castigating, but at some point we also are responsible for our actions because God gives us free will.
Right.
I think we make a mistake in expecting men to be perfect.
No.
Because we're not.
They're not.
No,
Well,
that's true.
It never called you to be perfect. Even what he's doing, and again, I haven't seen everything, but when you're dealing with people's actions and people getting riled up, or people being upset because of an injustice, upset because someone was hurt, someone was killed, someone was maimed, someone was robbed, even when it's an injustice, you're operating from a point of emotion, right? And so you're expecting people, you're operating from a point of emotion, and you expect people to be something Jesus never said, I call you to be perfect. No, he said, the relationship with me, you are forgiven of your sins. It doesn't say, that means you go out and sin, but the point is like, you're not called to be perfect, you're called to be submitted, right? And that submission will help you grow, right? And so like, you put this in context, is even in the context of the problems, okay, well, you know what, we were discriminated, we were enslaved, he and I would have been in the house, you could have been in the house or in the field based upon complexion or something like that. I could walk around here all day and complain about what happened to this person, what happened to that person, what happened to my grandmother and my mother. But what is that going to get me? That anger. What is that anger going to get me? Because it goes back to what he said. If I'm walking around pissed off, I'll listen to like Paris the Rap out of Oakland, Bush Killer. Well, you know what? You make a choice to be angry. You don't have to be. You don't need to have justice and anger. You can have justice and what you talk about, love. You ain't gonna have no reconciliation, no marriage, or no relationship walking around being pissed off. You better make a choice as to not being pissed off and to hold them accountable for an injustice, but forgive them.
Yeah. On that note, there is a place for anger, though. I believe there is a place for anger. In this context, James Cone, which is a noted theologian in the United States now, he said that anger is a love emotion. And what he meant by that is that anger lets you know that something is wrong with the relationship that needs to be fixed. So in that context, anger can be good because it does let you know that
So
something's
it can be,
wrong in a relationship. So it can be fixed.
It can be constructive.
When my wife comes to me, and she comes to me angry, and she might say, "Steve, you hurt me." And my first reaction is no, and it's no because I don't want to believe that I hurt my wife. But her coming to me in anger lets me know right now that something is wrong with the relationship and we need to start trying to fix it.
But you have to understand, most people may come to you in anger, but most of us, what happens is we stay in anger.
Yeah, and that's not good.
You can light the fire all you want, but if you're angry 10, 15, 20 minutes later, it's 50 years later, and we just still at they didn't give us our 40 acres of mule. Okay, dude, if we all get 40 acres of mule, we ain't gonna have no country to live in. It's gonna be broke.
Right.
It's gonna be $900 trillion. So I know what you're saying. It's a catalyst. Mm-hmm. Cool, got you. But a lot of people that get stuck in their faith and race and class issues, they get stuck in anger. And so the anger can be indicative of different things. But if you relish in this isn't the hot dog. You don't need to relish in nothing.
Yeah, that's true. But I like what you're saying to a degree. But to me, it's almost superhuman for you to do that. I mean,
well, that's the whole point of faith.
Yes, so faith is. But, I think that anger is indicative of something being wrong.
Well,
and
it should be.
As a society, if someone comes to you in anger and you know they're angry, and maybe they've been angry for a while, now the compassion for you or for us is to find out, why are you angry? And let's get to those issues that make you angry. Maybe it's something that I'm doing, but we have to have a conversation at some point.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree in the conversation.
Yeah.
But just the same as you may be angry, if you're going to grow past and when you're having that conversation about why they're angry, then it may be incumbent upon that individual or that body to move past that anger.
See, I don't think you can.
But I think it's really important though.
Why? What?
And I should have brought this up at the meeting 2 weeks ago.
Go ahead.
Is you can use anger as fuel to do something positive.
You can.
Now, you know as it grows? You know as it. I'm sure you do. But Isaac wrote a book about how he utilized his anger to make him better.
Yeah.
Now, I was angry with my mother. You come on first on thing? I was angry with her because it seemed to me that she treated my older brothers, two of my older brothers, better than she treated me. She used to give me the blues.
Yeah.
And I spent my life, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
I'm going to beat them at everything.
But everyone doesn't have the ability
to
take that anger and utilize it in a positive manner. Some people will take that anger, like I was reading this book, I think I showed you, Black Annihilation in the Face of White Domination, and the guy basically says some of the destructive things that happen in our community operate out of a need for validation.
True.
Right?
That's true.
And it's not necessarily a bad or a good thing, but a lot of us, there are going to be some people like him or you or whomever that can channel that anger. But guess what? A lot of people don't know how to channel that anger in a positive way.
Most people don't.
And so I'm talking 95% of the people.
That's when you end up with some bad consequences.
And so that's what I'm saying. I'm only saying one has to be careful. If you do not have the intestinal or mortal, spiritual fortitude, that can consume you in a way that's not positive. I'm not saying you don't converse with people. I'm not saying you can't use that as a motivating factor, because my dad would upset me and I would try to do the opposite of whatever he said, right? But at some point, there's limits to your knowledge and your wisdom in a human sense.
And will.
Well, that too. Yeah. And a lot of people don't have any of those to get them to utilize that anger in a positive manner. Some of us do.
Yeah, but you said something. You said something. You said anger as fuel.
Yeah.
Now you may become successful, but you're still taking that anger with you. Matter of fact, it's a fuel that's making you successful.
It's in your tank.
Yeah, but at the end, even when you're successful, if you're not healed, you're still angry. You're just a very successful angry
man.
Angry, and anger is very deep hurt. Is what it is. You're hurt. And so healing is very, very important. And that's what my project is about. My oral history project is about people healing. Because in my work, I have learned that everybody is hurting. Everybody. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what religion. I don't care what faith. I don't care what nationality, what gender. Everybody is hurting, man. And that's where we get this division from, because everybody's walking around hurt. You know, it's very important for us to heal.
But it's hard to deal with the hurt and anger when you can't talk to each other.
Yes.
When if I say boo, you're offended.
Yes.
You're offended because of my name or because I'm alive.
Yeah.
You can't get anywhere like that.
No.
Oh,
and
you
it's-
can get somewhere, but it's not going to be anywhere positive.
Yeah, yeah. It's,
See, because to me,
there's a solution to
this
that,
country, this country, this county, this state, your
Yeah.
house,
Yeah.
it's like a boat.
Uh-huh.
We're all on one boat together. So
Yeah.
let's
That's
make
right.
this thing work for the good of everybody on the boat.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, that's the goal.
That might take a little bit humility and self-sacrifice, and it'll take some coordination. Because if I'm rowing to go this way and you rowing to go that way, and this dude is on the side paddling like this, we're not going to go nowhere. And so, to his point of credit, for that matter, is like we may get to healing in different ways. We may actually come in and out of that point of forgiving, but you do have to get to the point where you can move past your past to live in your present
do.
to get to your future.
you do.
So,
you do.
so that decision to reconcile, although obviously, you know, and what you're doing is to, to facilitate it.
Yeah.
At some point, it's a choice, so that you can put in the right conditions for that person to move on and to understand there's commonality in genes.
Yeah.
When you think you're white, no, your great grandfather was, or whatever the case. No. Yeah, she looked like a sister.
Right.
Or whatever, but to make that choice,
this
because at the end of the day, you can set all the conditions. If I do not choose to change,
Right.
Yeah, but this DNA research will turn over a whole lot of apple carts.
it has. But you
Right,
know
right.
what? That's good in a way, because at the end of the day, whether you're looking in a physical genealogical sense, a DNA sense, or otherwise, even spiritually, we all come from the same kilt, and we may go left or right per our faiths, but we do have some things in common.
A lot of things in common.
There's
we
a
just
lot-
think we do.
Well,
we
well,
just think we don't. for
Yeah,
some reason.
exactly. And if you just talk to the people
we
like
have-
what
we
he's
have- we
saying,
ha-
you just talk to
We
them.
have more in common than we don't have in common.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Like
That's
you
right.
wouldn't know about me, but I like old school
and-
country. And that means I'm automatically cool with every white person over 75 in the South. Because they're just thinking like, oh really, Carter family, Gene Carter Fast, keep it on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. But the point is, like, there's points of commonality that, like he said wisely, will get you to the point of talking.
Yeah.
Once you talk, they're like, well, oh my goodness, he's got on those bad headphones, and I heard him listen to rap music. Well, dude, I listen to country music too. Dead country, not alive country. But there's commonality in music, there's commonality in faith, there's commonality in food. For instance, did you know fried chicken, in many respects, black people didn't start eating the fried chicken, the master ate it. We just had some leftovers.
Right.
So the point is, and I'm being facetious, but remember, the humor allows you a venue to go in and assert the truth. So while people laugh, you just slide the truth right back up in there.
Right. That's right.
You know.
Right. That's right.
So there's a choice about this, and there's so many things in common. Even Democrats and Republicans, well, we'll differ on many things, right? But if you want justice, you want it all the time. If you want a president to work with you, you want him to do it all the time. Hopefully, if you want Congress to actually help people, you want them to help and work together all the time.
Yeah.
Because we may disagree on how you get to points, right? You know, but there's a point to get to. There's a justice to get to. There's at least a healing to get to. Because if you get to that point of a conjunction, I won't say conjecture. If you get to that point of, I guess you could say intersection. I was thinking you get past conjecture to a conjunction, then we made it somewhere.
Well, it seems to me that too much emphasis and attention is focused on where we differ rather than what we have in common, what we have alike.
Yeah. What's
They
driving
focus,
that?
they
you think?
focus on differences rather than commonalities. And that makes no sense to me.
What's driving that? You think?
Let me just put it to you this way. There's a song, and I don't remember how it goes, but it's the player's ball. And the point of the player's ball, people that play the game on left or right, people that are in power, it's better to get you and I emotional about a subject, because then emotional, I don't like Donald Trump, I don't like black people, I don't like Barack Obama, I don't like that. Once you get them active emotionally, you've unsettled them. Collectively and individually. Once you get them unsettled,
and you disconnect their thinking.
well,
they're not
they
rational.
might not
at
already
that
been
point.
thinking either way. I don't know, but
You just like when someone gets real angry, sometimes they say, I was out of my head, I lost my temper.
Yeah.
I lost my temper.
you get groupthink. When you get groupthink, You think Hitler was bad. He was a horrible man. But the way they get us to fight against each other now is many of the same methodologies in regards to group dynamics, right? All you do is look at, you say the right thing, if you get them excited, they'll commit anything for you.
Right.
They'll vote against their best interest for 50 years.
And you know,
They'll do anything.
and you know, I thought about that question too, you know, a lot. And what I've come up with within my own understanding is why people pit themselves against each other is because at the end of the day, we really don't trust God is going to take care of us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the only way you can trust God to take care of you is to develop a strong relationship with God. It's like my wife and I, you know. I learned how to trust her through having a relationship with her and through nourishing that relationship and spending time and talking. And through the spending time and talking, you get stronger and stronger and stronger. You develop more trust. And so where you know each other instinctively. Mm-hmm. So what we've done just throughout the world, I just don't want to blame it on this country, is that we have not spent time with God. We have not developed, we have not nourished that relationship. And we've got to the point to where, man, I got to take care of myself. And when you have to take care of yourself and you're not dependent upon God, then you take care of yourself in ways that hurt other people. And because you are afraid, you ignore the needs of other people. Fear, right. And you were saying something a minute ago, and I agree with you, and we kind of got off of it a little bit, but one of the things, you know, I'm independent. I'm not Republican, I'm not Democrat. Maybe I'm not even independent. I'm just me. I'm a Christian is what I would like to term myself. And
him too.
But why are you pointing at me?
I am concerned about one thing. I am concerned about, and I would say liberals, you know, and I really don't like to label people because I just think it's bad to label people, but people know where I'm coming from. There seems to me to be a strand in liberals that deny God.
With respect.
That deny God.
There is a strand.
Right.
There is, like, capital I, capital S.
Right.
And again, and that's not to say I dislike the people left or right.
Right.
It's to say if you represent the Father, you represent the Father. If whatever your faith is, and one thing about other faiths, they represent what they believe. We just sit down and we kind of cower down. But you're right, there is an element of that bent that completely disregards.
Yeah, and it seems like in that denial of God, right? You know, like they say, political parties or politics, you have strange bedfellows, right? Mm-hmm. And so in a party, in the Democratic Party, okay, in this party, you have people that You're a little bit more confident about it, but you know, and nothing's wrong with that.
But
I say seen just to be cool.
Court example.
But no, you're right. I got you. I'm not saying you're wrong.
And I went to a liberal policy school, you know.
Right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So no problem. So in this party, right, you have people who eschew things of God, or at least appears to, and then you have people who are African American who are very God-centered, right? And who's in a minority in the party, and who are very conservative on many issues in terms of abortion and things of that nature. But you have this group of liberals who are at the center numerically and monetarily, fiscally, the power base, who brings along a group of people who are very conservative religiously into a land or space where they appear to support policies that are against what they believe in on abortion. And my stance on abortion is this, you know, at the end of the day, it's not good.
I think it's just evil.
It's not good. It's not good.
It's at a minimum selfish.
Yeah, it's not good.
That's not going biblical either.
You know, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not good. I've never seen, and I think I mentioned this the last time, I've never seen, and I've come in contact with quite a few women who've had abortions. Matter of fact, the lady at the center of Roe v. Wade, 20, 30 years later, she regretted it. They hurt. They feel pain about that. So that's something we need to really take care. That's something we need to think about.
That same thing happened with Madeleine Murray O'Hara, who the school prayer.
Yeah.
I think it was her or her son that flipped over.
Really?
The son, I think it was the son.
It's a son.
Yeah.
One thing that you kind of alluded to, I think that's important too, is not just that.
Excuse me.
That people need to, if you believe in God in a Judeo-Christian sense, that you need to understand who you are, whose you are, and what authority you have. So we're reacting to what society does, right? If you have faith through Christ, you have the authority of God to speak things into the earth.
True.
Now, granted, I'm not at the point where I can command a tree to, to wither up and die, but the point is, he gave you that authority, and if you do not understand that and exercise it, then whatever happens in the world ultimately is our fault. God will do nothing in the world except through a man, right?
Right.
And so we sit around like, well, what they doing to us? And no, what did you allow to do? Because if you stand on the word, you're supposed to be standing. He ain't say you was gonna stand for 5 minutes. Hell, fool, you might have to stand for 50 years.
That's trusting
or whatever.
in God, right?
Exactly. But if you have authority, can I say what your profession is? Yeah,
Sure, sure.
He's an attorney. So he understands
Like his brother.
Exactly.
Right?
I don't forget nothing, man.
Well,
I see.
What's
Like
your what?
my brother's an attorney.
But I'm saying you understand that you have authority based upon a legal precedent, right? We have authority based upon that relationship. So if something's going down, it's really my fault or our collective fault in terms of where we're at. And even in terms of people of color or black people, it's like, you know what? They can set up the context, whomever, because like I said earlier, it's all sides that are trying to manipulate for the acquisition and maintenance and the pursuit of power.
Yeah.
And you're just a pawn. They don't care what side you're on. They're gonna play whatever side they. And so if they can set up for people to be pulled along, but unless I get up and walk with them, they can't pull me.
That kind of plays
Yeah,
into the
that's
clip.
true.
They can't
That's
pull
true.
me.
That's
If,
true.
if I can get this clip up,
Yes.
Go ahead, sir. Yes, sir.
I think you've seen Kennard. You had. I don't think you've seen him, but that'd be good.
Things. I think there are many whites who act friendly toward Negroes. A fox acts friendly toward the lamb. And usually the fox is the one who ends up with the lamb chop on his plate. The wolf doesn't act friendly, and therefore the wolf has more difficulty in getting the lamb chop in his plate.
I'd like to point out, though, that...
And I say that because it is usually if you study the structure of the Negro community, economically, politically, civically, psychologically, and otherwise, it's controlled by the white liberal, who usually poses as the friend of the Negro, who actually differs from the white conservative in the same way that the fox differs from the wolf. I'm suspicious of whites who join Negroes and always have to be in the lead, who always have to be the head, who always have to be at the top in Negro organizations. Those whites who really have the interest of blacks at heart, let them give some advice to some Negroes and stand on the sideline, but don't join the organization and then get at the head of it and pose as a friend of Negroes.
Today, you could point to a large number of Negro leaders who have consistently betrayed Negroes in a whole host of areas.
They aren't really Negro leaders. These are puppets that have been put in front of the Negro community by white liberals. These are parrots that have been put in front of the Negro community by white liberals. You can't name me a Negro leader who has been betrayed Negroes, who has not been endorsed, sanctioned, subsidized, and supported by the white liberals.
What's your reaction there, Steve? You hadn't seen that before. Kennard seen it. He saw it last week, I believe.
Right.
I've seen it several times.
Right. You know, I think it's very important. You know, in my work, I have seen something that is concerning to me. And I've been working in racial reconciliation for 9 years. And one of the truths that I have learned is that very few loved ones of color are engaged in their own freedom efforts. Very few. And you know, common sense will tell you nothing will change if nobody's working on the problem. And I think we've lost personal agency, so we have to gather that agency back and in mass start to move and work in your own freedom efforts. I think that's the most important thing. We have to get up and move. But in getting up and move, I think there has to be a vehicle that's presented to where it makes it easy from the move, where it doesn't cost much time, where the barriers to entry are practically removed. And I think that's up to people like me who really care about this, who've been called by God to put forth those methods and vehicles whereby people can see that, hey, if I work into this, it's not going to cost me much, but if you get enough people doing just a little bit, it can move something.
I think what you do as far as a calling or ministry is important, and that's vital. But, you know, whether it be me in the lunchroom or me with the people at church or wherever, there used to be a time when we would do it because it had to be done regardless how easy it was.
Yeah, true.
And now we've been, I think the term, one of the terms they use is we were mollycoddled or something like that, where like, if it's not just like you said, we ain't gonna do it. But when that happens, you get whatever they give you.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I've done super duper things. I'm working towards my calling. But the point is that we should be doing what's right for us, regardless if it takes something. I was on the bond oversight committee for ASD for like 5 years or something like that, maybe 6, I don't know. And we were trying to fight for the minority contractors.
Yeah.
And the black contractors, sometimes they come up and they come with one person. And people were like, hey, it's hard to get off and such and such. Well, Anderson High School they came with 30 or 40, 50 people.
Yeah.
They got that $60,000 they wanted for their dance floor.
Yeah.
Black contractors, although we know they've been mistreated, they've been tricked in some respects, they're harder from the bond, all this other kind of stuff, they came with one person. And I looked at that lady and I was like, you know what, the Anderson High School came with all these people, you might want to bring more people up in here. Because there's 2 or 3 or 4 of us on that 20-something person committee trying to do something decent for them. We need backup.
Right.
It was easy for them to bring that one person because she was going to say something. No, fool. If you understand the dynamics of power, you just can't roll up in here with one person.
Right.
Anderson High School, the new Anderson, they rolled up with 30, 40, 50. They had PowerPoint and all that.
Yeah.
Well, they bulldozed their way to get what they wanted. Now, I'll be honest, I did vote for what they wanted because I actually think dance is important. But the point was, I'm telling the black people, like, hey, folks, this how this works. You can't, this might not be easy, but you can get here. You want to put some work in?
Right.
They ain't never come with more than one person.
Right.
And then the powers that be that were giving us the information on hub stuff or whatever, they just smoothed over and it made it. And some of those people are in high positions of power today. And they smoothed right over to where it was hard for us. We need a backup. It wasn't easy for them to get there. So I'm only challenging what you're saying in the context of people should be trying to do what they can, where they can. And sometimes it might not be easy.
Yeah, I've learned this too.
It might not be easy. Because the impediments are going to come. This wall of opposition, of this anger sometimes towards us trying to empower ourselves, the structural inequities and all that stuff ain't going away. So if you don't understand the dynamics of power and how people work or why people do things, then they're going to run over you every day because they know exactly what you just said. If it's not easy, we ain't going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it is true.
And they take advantage of that. Excuse me.
Yeah, no problem. In my work, I'm a tactician. I'm a strategist. And there's something that I need to get people to do. I know what the tendencies are. So I've developed strategy in this 50-year civil rights plan that I've written, strategies in this 50-year civil rights plan that I've written in order to overcome those natural tendencies to not be involved. And if we're going to be responsible, we have to put those forth, despite how difficult it is. So you got to make things easy. You have to make things easy, and then in making things easy, once you make it easy, I mean, you got to get on it and stay on it and never get off of it. And hopefully, just this one little thing that they do, we'll encourage you to do a little bit more. And encourage. It's really about feeling like you don't have agency. It's not that you're lazy. It's not like that you're just obstinate. It's feeling like you don't have any personal agency. I went to.
It's feeling like what I'm doing is not going
to work. Right. That's right. I went to Ferguson when Ferguson happened, and I just watched. I just sat back and watched. I just watched how people behaved, and then afterwards, I just started asking questions, and I saw a couple of guys in Walmart. I said, "Hey, what happened?" I went all around town asking this in Ferguson. I said, "Hey, what happened?" And they said, this is the first thing they said. They said, "You know what? It wasn't the fact that they shot Michael Brown that set us off, that made us angry. We're used to that. That didn't even make us mad." He said, "What made us mad was the fact that they left him out there 4 hours and nobody came for him." Okay? So that conversation led into this. Before I went, I did research on Ferguson. Ferguson is 35,000 people. 26,000 of them are African American, loved ones of color. So I said, you know what? I said there are 26,000 African Americans. There are 24,000 registered to vote. And of that 24,000 registered to vote, 14,000 of them were African American, loved ones of color. So I said, y'all, the African Americans can dominate every city council election.
If they participate.
And guess what?
I
The
think
margin of victory for winners of the city council seats were.
Less than
in the
1,000
in the
votes.
hundreds.
No,
Less than 1,000.
no. Yeah, you're right.
Less than 1,000. Less than maybe 500 even.
27 to 12.
I know it's less than 500.
75 to 20.
That's
And that's
Okay.
my point.
Right.
earlier
Almost
that-
done. Almost done.
No, I'm saying in 2 seconds. You have to be on point. You have to do it regardless of the effort.
So right. So I said this. I said, you've got the ability to be
Oh.
politically powerful. Why aren't you?
Mhm.
They said, well, it doesn't matter what we do. The powers that be still gonna put in who they want to. So it's the belief in not having personal agency is what it is. So you have to do things to heal people until they're able to recover that agency.
well.
And
you
that's
know,
what I'm about.
to me, it's kind of simple. To me, if you want something different to happen,
Yeah.
perhaps you ought to think about doing something different. If what you're doing isn't having any effect, then maybe you ought to do something else. Just
It
see
sounds
it
easy.
as a
I
comment.
don't think it's that easy. I really don't.
But
If you're not healed, you can't do that.
But that's true. But we made it through 400 years of being tortured, raped, people having to have sex with their mothers,
Yeah.
people having to be cut their body parts off, families being torn up.
Yeah.
And in the last 50 years, we can't do nothing. Well, I'm not saying you don't disregard like how when I was on Section 8 and how my dad wasn't there and all this. I don't say you don't disregard the structural things that happened, how our families were affected by welfare or government policy or redlining. But it's just like at some point we have to be honest with ourselves and say, like you said, hey, what is a plan? I have a plan to gain power, but at the same time, I need to challenge myself. I need to challenge like my kid or the people around me to say that, you know what, we made it this far. We can make it the rest of the way, but we need to do what we said earlier, which is to look out for each other.
True.
We can't, if we made it through 400 years of enslavement, Reconstruction, where they basically threw us out of power and threw us into Jim Crow to lead to the civil rights movement, suddenly it's hard. We can't do it. No. Once we said it earlier when we started, if you understand what your faith in God entitles you to, if you understand who you are as a believer, even if you're not a believer, if you understand who you are as a black person, if you understand your history, if you understand the things people struggled for before, I ain't got to be very bright. Maybe, and everybody's not going to come along, but there's a decision or critical mass that people can get to say, we can do this. They're going to put impediments in front of our way. But we got through 400 years of this, of enslavement, of not having any identity, and then suddenly we have to remember who we are and what we are, and that we can do it regardless of the impediments that are placed in front of us. There's something called faith, personal responsibility, self-validation, or something.
Yeah.
I always go back to my parents. Both of my parents were sharecroppers,
Okay.
and they had 11 kids, 8 boys and 3 girls. And there was like not one rule in the house. Nobody ever said anything to you, but you were expected to hit them books.
Yeah.
That's how you kept mom and daddy off your back.
Yeah. Yeah.
The better your grades were, the easier your
Your
life
life
was.
was. Yeah,
I mean, that's how it was.
Fighting
And
with my son yesterday.
when I was in like first, second grade, when I discovered what straight A's could do, I said, oh, okay. Straight A's and go to Sunday school, okay, I'm cool.
You good, right?
I'm cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I had some other brothers who didn't look at it that way. But of my mother's 8 boys, 4 of us had doctorates.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
you hit the books. I mean, that's how you had the easier life as you was gonna get in that situation.
Right.
But and I look at my own, and I look at the family structure. I'm gonna hit this. That's gonna be on my show next week. It's talking about, I think the crucial part now for us as black people is we have separate and unequal families.
Yeah.
I mean, the families are just shot to hell.
Yeah, it's true. But we have to be compassionate about exploring why that's true. It's one of the things that we have to fix amongst many. And my goal is to have everybody fix it because, you know, what I've seen is I'm black, right? Everybody knows this. Can see it. But I'm not just responsible.
You kind of look like you.
Thank you.
You're as black as me.
Right.
Well, you're just brown.
But I'm just not responsible to black people. I mean,
Right.
you know,
It's a
loved
human
ones
thing.
without color, you know, who I call white. Just, if you're white or a loved one without color, you're not only just responsible to other white people.
Right.
We're responsible to each other. We have segmented ourselves based on our skin tone, and we think that has made us not responsible for the other person. I'll tell a story. I heard a person say this, and I think it's a story that really is very deep. I was listening to Reverend Freddie Haynes out of Dallas, and he was talking about a time when he was in like 5th or 6th grade, and the teacher had them do a book report. And on the book report, you had to give your speech about the book report in front of class. So he's always a gifted speaker, and even when he was a kid, and, you know, he got up, did his book report, and he gave his speech beautifully in front of the class. But then this other guy, let's call his name John. John came up to give his report, but John just screwed it all up. Freddie Haynes laughed at him, right? And the teacher said, come here, Freddie. So here it is. I'm not going to give you your grade yet. But what I want you to do is I want you to go home and I want you to teach little Johnny over here everything that you know. I want you to teach him how to research, and I want you to teach him how to give a speech just like you. And he said, I want you to know that your grade is going to be based on how well
he
does. Mm-hmm. So the grade of the United States is going to be based on how the least of these do. So if you're white, you're not just responsible to white people. If you're black, you're not just responsible to black. You are a person. You're responsible for everybody. So nothing is going to absolve you of your responsibility of being good to people. You're not excused, and you don't get to sit down and say, I'm white, that's a black problem, or I'm black, that's a white problem. No, you have to solve anything that puts you in a position to where you're not living up, or someone's not living up to the best that God has to offer any of us. We are made to make sure that each other lives up to the best that God has promised us.
And what he said about God is the most important thing. So you should stand for yourself. It's all right to stand for other black people. But at the same time, if you say you believe in God, you come to my church, it's white, black people, a couple Mexican, whatever. Yeah. The point is like you're a member of a collective. God is no respecter of persons. He don't see color. He don't see gender. Male, female. Gotcha. But the point of it is, no problem, is that faith should lead you to understand that all life is valuable. Yeah. Born, unborn, white life, black life, short life, tall life, whatever. So the point is that faith should be the context by which you get to what my brother is saying, which is that, hey, you should care about everybody because, again, you look at Jesus, you look at the disciples, they never walked around saying, Church of Corinth, because you're an Asia Minor, you need to do this. Church in Ethiopia, you should do this. No, it said the word says.
They're not,
God
they're not
says,
tribal.
They're not, well, if they were tribal, it's the best daggone tribe you can get. But you put it in the right context because that identity through your faith supersedes your identity through your race, through your class, through your whatever, the fact that I went to such and such a school.
The identity as humanity supersedes.
Well, not identity humanity, but I'm saying in the context that if you're a believer, even if you're a non-believer, I'm going to treat you with respect. Yeah. Because that's the identity, that's what my faith teaches me. Is that I can do all things through the anointing that infuses me with divine ability. So I ain't got to be smart. I ain't got to be light. I ain't got to be tall. I'm going to remember who I am in the context of my faith.
I think it's important to know for the audience and me and
what's up?
Perhaps you, who Steve is working with here in Travis County
in
Austin.
Yeah.
I am doing a project. It's a storytelling project. I think I explained at the end of the story, and what it does, it allows African Americans and Hispanics to tell about a time where they were racially discriminated against, so they can release that story and allow God to come in and heal. So we're going to be inviting all people of color, loved ones of color, to come out to Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary on Saturday, August 24th, to tell us about a story. at a time you were racially discriminated against. What we do is we have students coming in from all over the state of Texas, mostly from HBCUs, where we have Baylor University involved.
Okay.
And we also have Austin Presbyterian, and they offer professors. So we wrap those stories in academic inquiry so we can bolster those stories so people can't deny them.
Okay.
So it'd be less likely for people to deny them.
Okay, I'm
That
going
makes
to
sense.
start kind of wrapping up here. I don't think we're going to get to the revelations of the election of Trump tonight,
Oh,
which means
Can
y'all
we-
going to have to come back here
Oh,
on another
that's fine.
occasion.
I'd love
and,
to.
And we might talk about
can
it.
I
Get to
broach
talk
that?
about
Can I get like 1 minute?
You got it. You
All
got
right,
you got
all
1
right.
minute.
Okay, hold on. This is gonna be real good. Okay, so the revelations from Trump is that at the end of the day, we are fractured by choice, but based upon who is in charge. At the end of the day, the revelation is that good or bad, one man can make a difference, good or bad, if you have a plan. And at the end of the day, this is a point where we can complain about who we don't like and separate, or we can look and say, how can we work together and come together? We're not in 3rd grade. We don't have to like the daggone man. We don't have to like Congress. But you know, at the end of the day, you say, you Frank, Congress, you Trump, you work together. Now, Trump, we might be able to get you out in 4 years or 3 years or whatever, but Congress, we can throw you out this year. And so at the end of the day, the revelation is, to some of it at least in the short, we need to work together. If you let them divide you based upon race, class, ethnicity, or whatever, you have effectively given away the country. And if you think Trump is the only one who might be giving out favors, you're a fool, because that's not how power works. They want us divided. We can believe different, but I live in America. I believe in America. I love people. The love he's talking about, showing the compassion, show them to the other people you don't like.
Sure.
Demand Congress work together. There's no reason why we should have a government shutting down because somebody's trying to get such and such a bill. No, work together, balanced budget, make sure everyone's taken care of, and move on. This is real simple.
You said a minute. That's about 2 now. Steve has a whole dissertation on that, so I'm gonna have to arm tie him, arrest him, and go up to side with a baseball bat or something, and get him back, and we're gonna talk about this.
That was a minute and a half, by the way. I
A
want
minute and a half.
You can't count up wrong.
But I want to thank you guys for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed having you guys here, and I learned a lot. I hope the audience got something.
I hope you did too.
I knew it'd be that way.
Well, God bless
That's why I
America.
said-
That's all I can tell you.
I had a good time.
I hope so. Does that mean you
I
come
hope
back
it's my
next time I can get you back in here?
It'll be easy.
That'd be easy?
Oh, yeah.
Getting him is hard. Kennard,
Why is it hard?
I don't know why you make it hard, man.
That's not hard because you only call me if you need a guest. What you talking about hard? I said I need to be there. You said yes. I was like, okay.
Okay, that was today, right?
He's like, I got
Thank
a
you.
guest coming.
I want to thank my audience, and I hope you got it half as much as I got out of this one. So Mike Lee signing off with the crazy gang.